So this presentation is about the point at which I realised that all of my hobbies are post-apocalyptic survival skills. And it's kind of a bit of a weird presentation because I've just stolen all my initial slides here by pointing out that I got burgled last week. They took more or less everything, all the portable technology that we had, including all of my slides for this presentation and my script. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm talking about this evening, but we'll, muddle along and see how we go. If there are any burglars in the audience, I do hope that you have syphilis. Although, if you're the burglar who stole my MacBook, if I get lost, tell me what the next line is, please. Thank you. So, about 8 or 9 years ago, I found myself wondering what I'd done with my 30s. I didn't have a clue what I did for the vast majority of the early 2000s. So I decided to have a project. I decided to say to myself I was going to do things more. I was going to say yes more to things. And one of the things that I said yes to was taking photographs, was joining a local photographic group, but not using digital photography, which is a good thing, seeing as all of my kit's been fucking stolen, and actually going back to the old school stuff and using analogue photography with film and things like that. And I learned a lot of techniques in terms of how to develop film using coffee and orange juice, for example, which is an awful lot of fun, and how to make my own cameras out of things like matchboxes and pinhole and coffee tins, and there's an example of how you do that there. So I give talks about how to do this kind of thing, and at one of these talks I came across a very enthusiastic young lady who told me about a project she was doing. It was 101 things in 1001 days. And I thought, this is a really good thing for me to do to get to grips with what I'm doing with my life. It gives me a focus, it gives me a point of things to do. So I made a list and I started learning about stuff. I learned about gardening, I learned about trees, I learned about what mushrooms can kill you if you find them in the forest and then, eat them. I wouldn't trust that recommendation, by the way. I still can't remember whether this one kills me or not because that information's dropped out of my head. But I've learned, I just decided to pick up ideas and run with them and do things that everybody should be able to do, and up until about 80 years ago, everybody could do. It was just kind of run-of-the-mill things that seem to have skills that have just dropped off the map, like making jam or making your own bread, or knitting. Knitting these days is a kind of a niche hobby. It's a very popular hobby, and it's an extortionately expensive one, but it is kind of a bit niche these days, and blokes don't knit unless they do it on top of mountains or things like that. I learned about beekeeping, for example. I mean, that's something that every house knew how to do. They kind of did this. And all of these are post-apocalyptic survival skills. All of these things are things that you can do after peak oil, or when the zombie apocalypse hits, or when we all get eaten by velociraptors. I'm not saying all of my skills are useful. I mean, I make balloon animals. This probably isn't the most useful skill that we've got, but in a post-apocalyptic survival context, the fact that we may not have any obviously useful skills doesn't necessarily mean that they're worthless. Because if after a meteorite hits and the entirety of the world's been destroyed, forgot that slide was there. I also took up archery, just as a thing. Now this archery was a weird one. Archery made me realise that what I was doing was actually something else. I just thought, we're shooting arrows at targets, but one of the kids on the course that I did kept on saying, let's get out the Frenchman, let's get out the Frenchman. And it was a cutout, it was a wooden cutout of somebody that they dressed in a French uniform. I thought, this is really disturbing. So we've got all these skills, and everybody in this room has got skills that you may think don't necessarily apply. But we can't work out somebody's utility until the situation actually happens. So you may think to yourself, I don't know what use I'd be if the world ended. But everybody has skills. If 90% of the conversations you have is how shit your life has become, maybe somebody will appreciate somebody who knows a bunch of knock-knock jokes. So I'm doing, this project came to an end and I found myself going, okay, my 1001 days are up, how have I done? And then I started doing more projects, again, which lead into newer ideas for what we should do with ourselves. And you should do that too. Thank you very much.